Welcome back to the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, presented by betonline.ag. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, how are we doing today? Oh, we got double guns. Double guns
well,
today.
I mean, with BC, with Brian Calhoun here, like, you got to show off your guns because he's got bigger guns. Let me tell you, he's got howitzers on his arms. Man, BC, my only question for you today is, how amazing would this offense have been when you were with the Badgers? Like, how do you think back sometimes and you're like, oh my God, if I had Phil Longo, I'd have 3,000 receiving yards and like 10,000 rushing yards.
I will say, I went to practice for the first time on this past Saturday, and it was pretty refreshing to see, right? Like when you come out in 11 personnel, right? One back, one tight end, three wides. The boxes look a lot different, right? And I also noticed that they're trying to get the running backs more involved in the passing game, which I think is something that we haven't really had probably since James was there, James White. So that's quite a few years ago. So it's some nice wrinkles to see, and hopefully, it gives defenses something to think about in the fall.
Definitely. All right, well, we're going to get into BC's practice notes here in a minute, but before we do, got to remind you guys that we are presented by betonline.ag, where they continue to be your number one source for all of your online sports wagering needs. You name it, they've got it over there at BetOnline. Baseball season has kicked off. I'm a Braves fan. They looked good until they got annihilated by the Padres this past weekend. Bernie, are you a Mets fan?
A Mets fan. They got annihilated by Miami yesterday.
BC Brewers?
The Brewers have the best record in baseball right now.
No, they don't.
No, Tampa Bay.
Tampa's 9-0. Tampa's 9-0.
Okay.
By the way, Milwaukee destroyed the Mets 3 games in a row. I don't even want to get into. Well,
I'll take the second best record in baseball.
Yeah. Well, so we're baseball guys, clearly, but no matter what your sport is, you can head over to betonline.ag and get some of the best odds anywhere in the world. Use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, when you sign up using your mobile device or over at the website betonline.ag. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Game begins.
It's going to begin.
Did I ruin it? Where the game starts.
It's where the game starts. Yeah, well.
It begins and starts with BetOnline.
Okay.
AG.
There we go. Okay, BC, we're going to begin outdoor practice notes. The team was out. What was it, Saturday? I think you were over at Camp Randall. Outside, there was a lot of really great social media. Shout out to the social media team, by the way, in this new administration for giving a lot more access, and it seems to be a lot more transparency. But BC, you were in the building. What was the first thing that stood out to you the most?
Just like I was telling Bernie before we started coming on air, is just, the last XYZ years, you were able to walk into building, walk into Camp Randall and see a lot of familiar faces, whether you play with them, whether they've coached there for a while. So that was different because a lot of guys obviously have not returned, but I think it's a fresh, new vibe. And shout out, like you said, to the marketing team. They've done a really good job of kind of rebranding Wisconsin football. So I think there's more access. I think there's a lot of really cool videos of workouts, videos of practice, videos of highlighting coaches. I think they've really done a really good job of really just getting the brand out there. And I think that part maybe wasn't as present in years past. So that's pretty refreshing.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of coaches on this podcast, and they've been very excited to jump on and talk to us about the guys. BC, what about the energy, man? Because these coaches come on with us, and it's like 2, washed up old dudes, and their energy about the players that they've kind of taken over, and the energy of Wisconsin's been, to me, electric. So, what's it like at practice with everyone is new, man? Everyone, yeah. You can feel the energy as soon as you step in. And I think that's maybe twofold. Number one, it's a whole new crew, right? They're at a really top tier university. And so they want to put their best foot forward, and they obviously want to do well here. Also, too, I think it's probably genuinely who they are. I think they're a group of guys that obviously, as far as coaching staff, a lot of them have been together before. A lot of them have relationships. So I think they really do want to well. And I think that's generally who they are. And I think it all stems from Coach Fickle. I had a chance to
to meet him after practice for a very few minutes. And I just think what they're doing, trying to create this buzz around Wisconsin football that we haven't had in a while. And I think they're doing a really good job. And they're reaching out to everybody, right? They're inviting former alumni and players back. They're inviting and reestablishing the connections in the high schools in Wisconsin. So I think they're doing a good job. And you just only hope like all this buzz around the program that they're able to manifest that into really good seasons after seasons after seasons. But so far, I think you couldn't ask for a better way to kick off a new regime.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting too. You talk about the buzz around the program, and we've already seen it in recruiting, right? They've got 5 commits from like big time players, like really big time players, like 4 stars, I think already. Out of these 5 kids, and it's early, and there's going to be more kids coming as the spring goes along. What has it been? I mean, you're in Milwaukee. Are people talking about it just like in school halls? Like, what's it? I mean, even if you're teaching where you're teaching, may not be talking as much football in the halls there. What's the buzz around Milwaukee for those of us like myself and Bernie who aren't there on a daily basis?
I mean, I think there's excitement. I get questions all the time about how do I feel about the hire? How do you feel about how things are going this direction? And honestly, I have nothing but good things to say. I think the more and more I hear Coach Fickell talk, the more and more I believe that he's all in. He's willing to, like I said, kind of rebrand or recreate this brand to being an elite university, which means getting recruits, which means updating facilities, which means updating the marketing. And so I think they're really on a really good track. And there's a lot of really good players in the state of Wisconsin. And they've already got, I think, 1 or 2. I know they got a lineman from Arrowhead committed. There's a couple more at Catholic Memorial.
Tight end from Wanakee.
Yep, from Wanakee. I know there's 2 big recruits from Catholic Memorial. So being able to keep those guys in state and then also go ahead and get some skill guys and some other guys from other parts of the area, they're going to be able to pull those guys in. It's not like we haven't been able to do that, but I think there's just more excitement, especially I would say on the offensive side, right? You'll be able to get some really talented receivers. You're able to obviously still get the O-linemen and running backs, but being able to get a group of receivers, which I thought was a group that stood out when I watched practice on Saturday, just the skill level, just the depth that they've had. I mean, it's really cool to see. And they play. I mean, I told Coach Fickell when I said, I go, I can really appreciate the pace and the intensity of which they practice, right? Like, and not that saying, we never played at it with intensity because we did burn. But I think just the way they go from place to place, everything's well organized. Everybody knows where they're going. It was really cool to watch, and it was.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you there, but like, how was it different? Like, give us some minutia. Like, how is it different from when you and Byrne were practicing for Barry to now? Because I'm sure it's
BC, I'm interested because when I went back and watched the team with Coach Chris, I still was like, what the? These guys are going real fast, man. I don't know what's going on here. And I'm also old and I don't know what the drills are and all this other stuff going back and forth. But there seems to be a difference in the pace of practice that has definitely changed since the early 2000s. When we were on the team, when it was like inside, then you bounced right to team or 7-on-7 or whatever you did. It seems like that's not it. Everything is becoming much more. Everyone's becoming like a handy knife. Like you can do 10 things, and people are doing tackling drills and blocking. And so I would love to hear what you think, because I think the pace was fast with Coach Chris, so it must be even crazier.
Well, I think a lot of it falls into what type of team you're going to be, right? Like, so if we're going to be a no huddle team, right? And so number one, the offense has to get accustomed to that. Number two, the defense has to get accustomed to playing against a style like that. So then, therefore, everything's fast paced. So what I saw was like there was very little wasted time. From horn to drill, there was very little wasted time, very little walking, very little time taken out to coach. And I mean, like, you're not taking 10, 15 minutes to necessarily coach through something. You're letting them play, and then you coach on the side when they're out. Does that make sense? And not
in the film
that's never not happen. And the spring is meant to teach more. But I think it was just horn drill, horn drill, horn drill, horn drill. Everybody was always doing something. There wasn't a lot of standing around. And I can be honest, I think when we were playing Bernie, there was times where, I wouldn't be in a period for 3 or 4 periods, right? And so I think it seems very intentional, right? And it seems like you're preparing the kids to play in a different style, which they are, right? And so being a 3 wide receiver set, you got to have a bunch of guys that can go, right? And you got to condition them, and I think this is the time to do it.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I think the spring game, a normal spring practice or the season is a teachable time, right? Like, you said, like, we're not coaching on the field. I think this spring is different. This is all new. There's a lot of new players, a lot of new everything, offense, defense, 100%. Terminology. You can't take the 30, whatever they have, 20 something practices and say, what is it? 20, 15, 30? Who knows what it is? 15, but you also have like the 15, days in between that you could be working out and doing other things. I'm sure. Right. You have to, to me, this is different. And why is it different? I think because you have all these new things happening that you have to just put the pedal to the metal and say, we will coach all this up in the film room when you're off the field at some other time. But you need to understand and learn the pace. And we need to know you're in the fire. And we just want to watch you work while you're in a place of maybe confusion, instead of like, everything and then you can go out and do it. And I think they'll reteach a lot of this in camp.
Right.
And then I think from that point it takes off. But they're really practicing for the season. I think that's exciting. They're not like getting guys ready. They're like, no, we're using these practices to win games next season.
Right. No, I think there's a skill you have to learn how to practice, right? How to practice effectively, how to make sure you're getting everything you want to get done, with also being able to teach and give experience to maybe some of the young guys. But pretty much everybody's a young guy because it's a whole new offense, whole new defense, right? So there's a skill to learn how to practice. But like I said, I'm on the mindset of like, we're going to teach you, the offense and defense. We're going to go play. And then we'll, like you said, make corrections in the film room. But I want you to go out there and play fast. And I think they are trying to do that. And so, it was really kind of mind blowing. Like, man, they're really moving and the pace, right? You almost can't quite catch your breath. But I think, spring ball is also meant to be a little bit more challenging, a little more difficult than actual regular season the games, just because you're preparing them for, what they're going to see in the fall.
One of the things that you mentioned before we hopped on was the amount of pass catching you saw the running backs doing. You guys are obviously running backs. So a two-pronged question. A, how did it sort of feel and look with the running backs being out in patterns more often? And B, how much do you wish you could have played in this offense?
I definitely don't wish I could have played in this offense.
Well, you couldn't have played in this offense, Bern. That's the problem.
No, I think it's an underrated skill for Ches and Braylon. They haven't been able and they haven't been asked to catch to pass the backfield. But I think it's such a problem for the defense when you got a guy that, a guy or two guys that can catch the ball in the backfield. Like I said, you look back at James White. I mean, basically he had an 8, 9, 10-year career doing that in New England, right? And so, I think we were able to do it when I was there because, Paul was creative in that sense of Wisconsin's never really had a guy that caught a lot of passes. And so a lot of what we did as an offense was trying to get me and Brandon Williams and Owen Daniels the ball. So we were able to play around and move me around. So I think for them, they're going to be able to do a lot of things. You're going to be able to put both those guys in the backfield at the same time. Braylon can block for Ches can run routes, Braylon can pass pro. Like, there's a lot of different things and create mismatches, because at the end of the day, as an offense, you want to put your best guys in the field and you want to create mismatches for each one of those guys. And I think we're finally going to start getting the skilled players on the outside to really make a difference. I will say this, my one question that I'm looking forward to seeing in the fall is how we utilize the tight end position. because we've had a lot of really good tight ends, Owen and Travis and Lance and Ferguson. Like, we've had some really good tight ends. I'm interested to see how they fit into this equation, because when you go 11 personnel, 3 wide, sometimes the tight end can get overlooked. And so I'm interested to see how big of a part they play in the pass and run game. Well, the second question, I would have loved to be in this offense. And obviously, when I played long time ago, we were really big up front, right? Our fullback Bernie was just as big as a lot of O-linemen. No offense, Bernie, but you were big and strong. Chris Presley was big and strong. So we were that was our strength, right? Not that we couldn't go 3 wide or 4 wide, which we did, but we were so big and strong up front. It was easy for me to see a hole, see a crack, get through it fast, and then, be off to the races. And so I think at the time the offense probably fit our needs and able to flex me out. But to be able to go against, a defense without an 8-man box, what I mean? I think just opens so many things up as far as a running back in the pass game and the run game. So I think especially for me, I wasn't a big guy, so I would have just found a crease and tried to make it work. So I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air, and it's going to be refreshing. I think it's going to help Braylon stay a little bit healthier too, right? Not having to always go against an 8-man box and assume that we're always going to run power or inside zone or something like that. I think it's going to be able to keep those guys fresh as well.
Well, you talked about the strength of the offensive line when you guys were there. I think one of the big questions is that this is a huge transition stylistically for the offensive line. Pass first offense, like they're going to be asked to move a lot more. Like the tempo is way up. Did you notice anything about the offensive line, either in terms of physique or tempo or anything like that, that stood out to you?
I think a lot of them. So I played with Joe, right? And Joe was maybe not the prototypical guy we've had at Wisconsin, right? He was, I don't know, 6'6", 300, 305.
6'8". Oh. He was 6'8".
So there you go. So like a lot of those guys have that kind of frame, right? They're tall, they're a little bit leaner. They're not like, the 320-pound guard that we normally have, right? A lot of them are a little bit tall, a little bit leaner, a little bit more athletic. And I think that's probably going to be the hardest transition of any group, is just playing at that tempo. I didn't see a huddle at all on Saturday, so just everything's being called the line. And the only thing that I would say that gives me pause is, we've always been pretty good in the run game as far as run blocking, right? Even the last few years, they've been really good run blocking. They've struggled at times in the pass pro, right? And so now you're talking about asking guys to pass pro more than they had before. And so that may take a little bit of transition, a little bit of time for them to kind of get in that mode of like, it's not going to be 50-50. It's probably going to be 60-40 pass pro to run. So we got to get pretty comfortable doing that and doing that at a high clip.
Well, Coach Bicknell did say that when he came in, he said, these guys already have run blocking experience. Like they did that a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So he's like, we're gonna focus and work on the pass blocking. And he said that there's things that he already knows off the bat that he's excited to teach these guys about different pass sets and different things. I think comparing anybody to Joe Thomas is not fair. Totally.
That's just an outlier as far as physique wise.
Totally. Joe Thomas, if anyone ever saw like the Jason movies, that's what he looked like a big guy, literally unstoppable. I don't know what in all those movies, they like blow him up and burn him and he just keeps walking after you and he's fast.
Yeah.
And strong. Listen, I'm excited for the O-line. I think some things we've heard is that they were just all over the place. They couldn't pick up what was being put down, and it's confusing. You get different coaches and different things are happening, and the year was kind of crazy. I'm really excited because we had Coach Bicknell, and he was unbelievable. And I think when you have these guys, like even Huber was that he still was a guy like that. Yeah. You listened. He was a good coach, and you really. Either you wanted to do well because you don't want to get yelled at, or you wanted to do well because you didn't want to get yelled at. Whatever the reason was, he still was a good coach. And I think what we have now are a lot of really good pieces to a puzzle. And I have to believe, and I would love to hear what you think still on the O-line, but I can't see them. I have to think that they're going to be way better than they were last year.
Well, and here's the thing: that group, right, has more top level recruits in that room than any other group on the team, right? All those guys are fairly highly rated recruits, right? And we all know, stars don't necessarily matter to a certain extent, but the cup is not bare by any means, right? And so they have some talented guys, and they're going to figure out. And I think I agree with the statement of like they've done a lot of run blocking. Let's work on your weaknesses, which is pass pro, and so they're going to get better. It's not going to be. It's not going to be maybe an easy fix right away, but they'll get better over time. They will.
Yeah, well, and they have to, but they will.
He said they have to, but they will. Yeah,
but they will. Go for it.
Yeah. So did you get a chance to meet Coach Spalding, new running backs coach?
I did. So
he is an interesting guy. I'm excited for when Bernie and I get to talk to him because he's a young dude who seems to have a whole lot of energy.
He does. So I got a chance. Alec James is now kind of the director of alumni relations and high school relations or whatever. So I got a chance to meet Spalding, and I got a chance to meet Coach Fickle after practice. He's a younger guy with a lot of energy. I think he's going to coach him hard. I think it's probably going to be a little bit different style of coaching they've had. And going back even to Coach Settle was a little more laid back coach. But I think he's going to be good for them. I think he's going to challenge Braylon and Ches to really take their game to the next level. But it's also like certain positions, there's just certain intricacies about the position. And I think the details do matter. And I think just from observing from afar, he's really trying to, pull out and understand the actual position. And I think, and honestly, for me, what helped me so much was having Coach White in the run game. He really hammered the details. And, we made fun of him all the time because he had the same sayings over and over again. But at the end of the day, you really hammered the details. And that stuff showed up in the game. And I think having those type of things in place for that group, especially a talented group, I think the new coach is going to be really good for that group. And then, help some of those younger guys too, because after this year, Ches is done. And then, depending on what Braylon decides, you're going to have a whole new group of guys that you're going to have to, teach and learn and be ready to play.
What Coach White saying best describes what you saw out of the running back group and Coach Spalding?
Oh boy. I only have like negatives.
Oh man. He always talked about like speaking his language, right? Because he had certain words or phrases for everything. So whether it was carrying the ball high and tight, whether it was like you always before each play, you had an idea like, okay, if it's outside zone, we didn't call it outside zone, but if it's like Bob or something inside zone, you had to talk about what's your footwork, what's your landmark, what's your reading, like, you had to speak that language because it's easy. If you can't do it easily in a meeting, you sure as hell ain't gonna do it easily in front of 85,000 when you got Michigan's D line running after you. You know what I mean? So like, I think he just has certain things that you were able to develop a consistency of like, this is what you expect from this position on each play. And I think the new running back coach is going to get that out of Braylon and Ches too.
I mean, you got to think, Coach White was so detail oriented, made you think about football. He made me think about football in a whole different way, mentally, more than just physically running dudes over and getting into the end zone. That literally, I played tailback against Penn State and did really well. Now we had the best O-line, I think, in the biz, but because you hear it and it's like osmosis. What's your landmark? What's your first step? What's your landmark? What are you thinking? What are you looking for? It's like, BC, you're a whole different, can of worms. Like you're a spectacular athlete. Like your running back IQ was so much better than mine. That's why I play fullback. You're welcome. I mean, but that's like somebody asked me and I'm like, man, I hope AD comes back soon. That dude's special. Like you guys are special. So to have Coach White be able to coach two different groups, I'd say the running back group,
right,
to be so detail oriented, to hear that Spalding's doing the same, it's exciting because it really does. You know, you think like anyone who just plays football is like, give the ball to this guy, he's the best guy.
Right.
But Coach White was coaching Ron Dane, you know, all the way up until whoever PJ Hill. You had dudes, everyone almost played in the NFL.
Right. And I think if those details aren't coached consistently with everybody, things fall through the cracks. Like, for instance, you know, if you watch Braylon last year, he had a lot of powers, right, that he went backside, right? Usually that's the number one rule, that you don't go backside in power unless it's wide open, right? I remember doing that one time against Michigan, and Huber pulled me aside. He goes, listen, you go backside one more time, you are on your own. Yeah. Right? Like, you are on your own. We can't help you. And so, like, it's small details of, like, power always hits A gap out, right? Like, it's always A gap out. And so those small things, and I think, as running backs, for the most part, the really talented ones have a lot of capacity to handle a lot. And I just think that we haven't, in the last couple of years, given Braylon and Ches a lot on their plate. And I think they can handle more. And so that's why it was really exciting to see Braylon this past Saturday in pass pro, right? And Braylon's not a small guy. I still think people forget how big he is until you see him in person. Like, and a backer comes to the A gap, he's stone cold a guy right in the A gap, right? Like seeing him in pass pro, seeing Ches in the pass game, seeing Braylon in the pass game, like, those are things that they should be asked to do more, because those are your best players. And you need your best players to handle the most, but also be the best and most productive. And now you got two guys that can do in the backfield. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a really big year, and I think they're going to freaking eat from day one.
Yeah, and that pass pro makes you a lot of money in the pros.
I'm telling you,
just ask James White.
I'm telling you, he
just has Daria Gumbawale.
Yeah, right? Still playing.
Just has Daria. Like,
Daria, and I know Daria well, and no disrespect to him, but he's probably the least talented guy, right, from Wisconsin that's played as long as he has. And that's just a fact, right? Like, of all the really good running backs that come out of Wisconsin, he's still playing.
He never started a game in college.
And exactly. And it's like,
his work ethic and his
hardworking, good guy, good teammate.
Great special teams player.
100%.
Right. I would say he's like the epitome of outworking every single person.
100%.
And constantly learning, which I think is huge in football, because the game still is consistently moving. BC, you said something that I wanted to go back to, but I totally forgot. So I'll pivot instead to, you watch Braylon and Ches, right? From last year, you can see the difference, right? Like, Braylon seems like a downhill, like, I want to hit pinball off of 20 guys. Yeah. Ches to me changed dramatically from I don't want to hit guys to I want to start getting hit and hitting guys. What's the difference between those guys last year to what you're seeing in this offense now?
I think Braylon's first year, he was downhill, right? He was young. He was just trying to hit every hole, head down. Last year, I thought he did probably a little bit too much dancing, too much trying to make every play the big play.
What did Coach White say? One step and go.
One step and go, right?
Get up on their feet and make a cut.
I thought, one cut and go. I feel like Braylon just had times where he was trying to make every play a big play.
And you got to trust. He didn't trust that things would be there. Coach White always was like, trust it. These guys are, you wanted the backer to run. You want the defensive guys to run, and then you cut back and you're gone.
Yeah.
But you got to trust it, though.
It seemed like, and listen, I was just there for one practice, but it seemed like he was more of a one cut, get downhill, play behind your pad type of guy. I think for him, for next year, for him moving on to the next level, that's the kind of guy he is, right? And so he needs to do that. I think Ches, from his first year when he tore his knee, he kind of looked a little bit bigger last year. And I was concerned of, like, sometimes when you add weight on a smaller frame, your speed diminishes, you're carrying a little bit of weight, harder in your joints. But I feel like he it's kind of bulked up, but also like playing with more of a physical presence when he runs. And so he's finishing runs, he's finishing forward. And he's not necessarily just avoiding or shying away from contact. So I think I would be hard pressed if somebody could find me a better duo than those two. in the country. I really believe that. Just
believe it too.
On what they bring, based on their style, based on the offense we're going to run in. I would find it hard pressed to find two better guys in the same backfield. And what I'm excited about is in having those guys. I'm sure they're working on it, having those guys in the backfield at the same time. Right? You can cause some real headaches for defenses when you don't know who's getting the ball, who's blocking, who's running, who's catching. It's going to be pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, and you would have done, you could put you out as a wide receiver. So the personnel plays with people's defense and then people's 100%. Minds. Is you have 11 personnel, or you have, what would it called? It would be I don't even know what is 2 backs and 3 wide receivers. You could literally do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think I don't want to forget the receiver group has stood out, right? Obviously, changes there, but you have Lewis and you have the Pauling kid, I believe, from Cincinnati is playing the slot. But you're legit like 6-7 deep at that position, with a variety of talents. So I think with that combination on the offensive side, that offense should be able to put up some points and really get some guys on their heels next fall.
Yeah, so, I mean, BC, you get you and me in a room. It's like I just want to talk Braylon and Ches all day.
I know, Brandon. I got to pivot us to talk about quarterbacks, man, because
I was about to do the same. I'm just saying, I absolutely love the running backs. I'm so excited.
We love running backs. Everyone loves running backs here, right? If you love Wisconsin, you love running backs. You love offensive linemen. It's part of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
But Bern, we talked to Coach Longo. He's got me excited about a little bit of quarterback play. Not going to lie. And BC, what was it like to see just dudes slinging it around and not taking play action 7-step drops or old school 5-step drops, just having it in the shotgun and having it out quick.
But also having like dudes in the room.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. What is it to see that just on display?
So there's no huddle. And so everything is from the sideline from Coach Longo. What's the kid's name from SMU?
Tanner Mordecai.
Number 8, can sling it. Holy moly! Right, like he has a very live arm, and I think what we've lacked in the past is maybe that the way to read defenses and make a quick decision is something that I think we've struggled with in the past. And he has a live arm, so he can make every throw. But he makes quick decisions, like boom, 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 balls out, right? And then like the check downs are thrown the way to be thrown, a level 2 throw, a deep throw. Like he has all the tools. And so I'm excited because he's going to put up some huge numbers. But that was one thing that jumped off, and I was like, wow. This dude can freaking sling it. And I don't know if we've had a guy that can sling it like that before. Russell's a little bit different because I think Russell was a little more athletic. Like Russell was a little bit more running around. They did have some run plays, called run plays for the quarterback. But I don't foresee that being a huge part of offense. I just foresee that being like something that we need in that situation. But he can freaking sling it. And I was just like, man, wow, this is like backyard football. The ball's going everywhere. And so that was really cool to see. And I think the receivers are going to benefit, huge from them as well.
Believe in Badgers is excited to be brought to you by Infinigods. Infinigods is a gaming studio with a suite of free, fun-to-play games centered around ancient mythologies and civilizations. Visit Infinigods.com to play their first game, Infinimerge, and learn about their upcoming tower defense game. Play for fun or play to compete and take your shot at winning digital collectibles. That's Infinigods at Infinigods.com, unleashing the power of blockchain games.
So any of the guys, some of the maybe the backup dudes, you're like, wow, this kid could be good, future. Maybe they have some plays that you're like, man, this guy's going to come in and run the ball a little more, do something different. Like, was there any of that? I mean, you were at one practice, so, there is that. But was there any, like, guys who were not maybe the starter that you're like, man, I'm pretty excited about this kid one day?
So I feel bad because I only watched really the offense. I didn't really watch any of the defense.
Dude, who watches the defense? Sorry, coaches and everybody else. But I mean, like, why would you?
I think that receiver group is going to be good, right? And so the kid from SC, Williams, there's a couple other kids that I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna be all right. The running back, is it Jackson?
Jackson Aker, the number 34.
Jackson Aker, and then the other kid that played safety but then moved to running back. Starts with
Cade Yakimelli.
Yeah. Those two, I thought I was like, okay. Like, so Cade was getting the number 3 reps.
Yeah.
In the running
We've
back.
heard good things about Cade. He was a high school kid out of Western Pennsylvania who was just kind of like an athlete. Like he just kind of did it all for his high school team. So, he's always had the athleticism to do it. He just had to find a position. Yeah. So I think it's interesting to see how he's going to turn out.
Yeah, he's got some juice. And I think, it may be tough to get some reps this year, but he's got some juice. I was really impressed. One cut guy, but fast, explosive, which, I think you need that at that position. I thought Aker did well. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he transitions back to running back, because I know he played that in high school. I'm trying to think. Like I said, that tight end room, I'm just really interested in see how they all fit in.
Yeah, they've got a lot of injuries they have to deal with too.
They do, and that's been a group that's been kind of injured over the last couple of years, and so I don't really know what to take from that group, because we want them to stay healthy, obviously. But then we're gonna need some guys to make some plays in the pass game too. So we'll see though.
Yeah, so let's take a step back and look a little bit more like big picture sort of at the program. And I'm just curious sort of like your thoughts. I mean, you guys are always talking with your former teammates or the guys who played in the program. Just what's going on there? What are the conversations you're having with guys you played with about sort of the state of the program?
I think everybody is genuinely excited. I think everybody is feeling kind of a breath of fresh air. Like I said, and I'm not gonna lie, it's still kind of eerie, right? Because it's not the Wisconsin way. But I think the Wisconsin way has been a crutch on this program for a while, because you think there's only one way to do a certain thing, and so I think there's a way to still be Wisconsin, but also update other areas of your program to make it more marketable to high school kids, right? And so I think it's good. I really do. And last time I was on here, obviously the whole situation with Jimmy Leonard, and we thought he was going to be the guy. And here's the thing, I'll be the first to say I never thought Coach Fickell was a bad hire. Like, I'll be the first to say that. I don't think anybody ever thought that. And I think you guys talked about it before. It's like, I think people felt a certain way of how it was handled for Jimmy, but that doesn't mean Coach Fickell is not a great coach. And I think that's the best hire for what we're trying to do in our fit. And hearing Coach Fickell talk, like, he's the guy, right? And he's the guy, and he's going to do, I think, really well at Wisconsin, rebranding it and making it a top 10 program that it deserves to be. And then when you start winning a whole bunch of ball games and playing in big games that matter and winning those games, the floodgates are going to open, and you're going to get a lot more people that want to come to Wisconsin, a lot more people that want to be involved, a lot more former players coming back. And that's why I think everybody's kind of just waiting on pins and needles. Like, so far, the first 2 boxes are checked, right? The third box is we got to get to the season. The fourth box is we got to win a major championship. But so far, so good.
Yeah, listen, I agree. I feel like when it happened, I thought Jimmy was the guy. I was very excited. I think he would bring in a lot of new. It was emotional. Yeah. But when you look and you're like, man, Coach Fickell, you're like, hold up. This guy's proven, he's done it. And then he starts, then you're like, it was like 2 worlds colliding. I was like, man, I love Jimmy and he's my dude and I wanted him. But you're like, wow, Fickell's great. And what he started doing immediately, he got Longo, he got all these other guys. And you're like, we didn't give Jimmy a chance to do anything. So there is that. I'll preface that. But then you're like, damn, this guy took off. Like, he was shot out of a literal cannon and never stopped. What impressed me the most is I think the day after he was hired, he was at Catholic Memorial talking to the coach. The day after, like, the dude flew in on a jet, did a press conference late at night, which all the kids were at, all the students were at, and the athletes, the football guys, which I was shocked because all the stuff you're hearing is like, maybe we're not going to come back. We're like a little upset. So what did that man do to persuade, or the message he gave the student athletes must have been one of like high energy, exciting, hey, we're at a precipice to do something special here. I just think it's cool. You have dudes coming back. You have what's the name coming back for like his 17th year, the quarterback. He's the 9th man in the room.
Yeah.
And he's coming back for like a 6th or 7th year. So
actually, hold on. You're talking about Chase Wolf. He's actually not.
Oh no! What happened?
That situation changed. He that situation changed.
Take another opportunity.
Yeah. He took something else. So
what did he do?
Business, like moving on to like professional career.
Oh, he's smart then. Yeah, he's just gonna sit in a room all day and with a clipboard.
Yes, it was definitely the right move, I think, for all parties involved.
Agreed.
But no, you're right.
I don't know. I was kind of excited I'd be excited to get a front row seat to like this whole new era, but neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt Perkins. I just think, listen, I think what he's doing, you're right, BC. We're checking all the boxes. Our social media branding has been through the roof. Automatically, he got coaches that I think we needed a long time ago. I think we needed a Phil Longo. I mean, Phil Longo to me is like the most needed hire in Wisconsin history in a long time. I think we're checking the box of getting transfer portal guys to fill holes that we needed. And I think what we have the recruiting cannon fires like every other week.
Yeah.
Can't even keep up with all the dudes that are up saying yes to Wisconsin.
And I don't follow a lot of other social media like team accounts, but this also reminds me of another school that did a hire. One of my former schools is Colorado, right? Like, and the only reason why I say that is because like their social media is like almost full access. And like in today's world, that is needed. People want to see what actually goes on from a day-to-day basis. Obviously, Dion is obviously a very like in the spotlight type of person, but like the moment they hired him, how are we going to elevate this brand? And they highlight every little thing they do. And I'm like, that's genius because you get bought in, you get buy-in from them. And that's the same exact thing we're doing here is like every week I see something new, something I haven't seen from Wisconsin. There's different cultures, there's different players. Like it's just like it's so smart, and especially in today's world where a lot of recruiting is all done via online social media. You need to have a strong presence in that, and I think it's going to help us in the long run. I really do.
And I think building on top of that is the fact that you've seen if you're following recruiting, there are a ton more recruits visiting with their families, and it's a much more transparent thing. I don't know if you've watched like the first episode of the camp. You can see at practice just how many people are there, and the transparency for me works in two different ways. The first of those is that you just see a lot more, like you just talked about with what Colorado's doing, things like that. You're going to see behind the scenes stuff. You see them lifting, you see them doing all of that good stuff, and it builds up positive vibes and it builds up buy-in. The second thing it does for recruiting is it shows, parents, high school coaches, this is exactly what it's going to be like. There's like, we're not behind closed doors. We're not going to, you can see exactly how the coaches are going to coach you. And I think what that also does is it kind of weeds out guys a little bit who may not be down for that.
Right. 100%.
And so for me, it is a huge bonus. We talked about at the beginning of the episode, like kudos to the social media team. For me, I'm someone who's worked in social media and whatever. That LSU title team from 2019 for me was the team that like took it to the next level. And I think this social media team is doing a lot of the same things and building hype in a really positive way that is, just translating on and off the field.
Very intentional. You can tell they're very intentional of what they're doing.
Listen, in BC, imagine if someone was filming everything we did outside of I would probably not saying I would work harder.
I don't know if it would have been well perceived, right?
I would have looked better at practice than like my cut, my shirt that was like ripped in pieces. And
I don't know if it was well received. There was more fights and more
Well, that stuff might not have been portrayed out there. That was one of my favorite things Coach White did. He got mad at a cut, because the film staff used to cut the fights out. Coach White was like, "Where is this?" And he kept going back and forth. He couldn't find it. So then he this has to be like my second or third, maybe my second year there. And he went to the film staff and he's like, "Listen, every cut that I get, I don't want the fights cut out." So we would watch the fights with me. It was just kind of funny to watch like these ridiculous fights. And then he'd be like, "Yo, you see this guy? Don't ever let him do that to you again." Like in a fight, someone like sends a sucker punch or whatever. He's like, "Don't let this happen to you again."
But things have changed, right? Like super long practices have changed. Being padded every day for 2 weeks has changed. Like things have changed for the better, right? Obviously, player safety. But it is interesting to see kind of how they go about things. It's like, man, if there's a camera around in 04 and 05, you would have saw something for sure. Good or bad, I don't know.
There are a lot of people figuring out social media slowly who would have been very electric stuff.
Agreed.
Who would have been the most electric from that team?
Brandon Williams. Maybe B. White.
Well, in 04, when I read
Dantes.
That was a group of like Raz and Antaj and all of them. That was
Antaj.
But yeah, in 05, it for sure would have been B. Will. It would have been the receiver room would have been all over the camera and all over the mic.
Yep. You would have never saw Lee Evans, but you would have seen all these other guys. The D line for sure.
Yeah.
Those guys were wild. I think Zalewski would have been a funny dude.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I think I would have been a little bit wild if I was getting filmed.
Oh, you would have been fantastic. Like
I would have definitely
what
been
I would have
wild.
wanted though, Bern, I would have wanted like a real life documentary following you around after games at Wando. So that's what I think the people really want to see.
Then I would know what I did that night. It'd be great. I actually don't know if I want that. But see, the thing is, then do I change the way I am?
Yeah,
because I know I think there is that, right? Like you're not going to Wando's to just drink fish bowls and beers because nobody's filming. You're going and like you have a couple beers and you're trying to be like a good individual because they're filming stuff that the coaches could watch.
Yeah.
I wasn't mad about my parents seeing anything. I was mad about like Coach White being like, "Hey, Bern, anything I got to worry about from last night?" You're like, "What have you heard?"
Or JD hears about it. Then you really don't want to be in. Then you're in a world of hurt.
Because listen, it wasn't just one person heard about it. It was it's like they had a coaches meeting after anything ever happened, and everyone knew automatically. It's like they were all in the same AOL chat group. It was like Matt Bernstein drank 10 beers at Wando's last night, and then like JD's like, "Oh, you drank 10?" Oh, and then Coach White's like, "I heard you had 10 beers." They're like, "Dude, it's 6:01 in the morning. Like, how on earth did you hear this?"
That's how you know
this
you're
update.
AOL.
I just thought the AOL chat group, man. I like that. That was fun back in the day. What are you in Slack now? Like, let's bring it back. Not AOL.
What do you want? What's your away message? Is it going to be some lyrics from whatever song you're listening to on the day?
I remember that. That was great.
Yeah, I'd be in a bad mood. I'd leave some like really emo song lyrics up there. Be like, "Yeah, I'm so sad."
Oh, that's so funny.
But it was great because then somebody would pop on and they're like, "Oh, they're in green or whatever," and you're so happy they're in there, and you could just talk to them. It was so stupid, to be honest. I mean, now it's like kind of what we do all the time, but it's still back in the day. Just call somebody.
Yeah.
Bernie, you love a good phone call, don't you?
If you send me an email that's longer than a couple sentences and I can't understand what you're saying, which is almost every email, I just call you back. Everyone has a signature.
That about you.
Everyone has a signature and has their email or their phone, and I leave messages like a jerk. I love it. I'm like the one guy nobody wants. Everyone's like, "Damn it, this guy's gonna call me, isn't he?" People will literally screen my call and then send me a text saying, "I'm not picking up your phone call today." Like right now. Dude, my wife does it. She's like, you got to start scheduling these calls. I'm like, "Honey, can't do that, man. You just got to call people." Whatever. It's so much easier to text, to be honest, but not in business when you're trying to get things done. Neither here nor there, BC. What are you most excited about come Buffalo? The Sabres? Matt Perkins, Buffalo Sabres. What are they called? The Buffalo.
What the hockey team's the Sabres.
Oh, what's the team?
Buffalo,
the Bulls.
The Bulls.
The Bulls are our University of Buffalo team. Yeah, the Bulls.
Is that who we're playing?
Yeah,
First game. Yeah, the Buffalo Bulls.
Yeah,
sounds so terrible. Rolling
is that a Friday or Saturday, Perk?
I think it's a Saturday game, right?
Saturday game.
If you guys vamp, I will find out.
I think it's Saturday. I think it's the 2nd. So I think it's Saturday.
It's like Labor Day.
Yeah, that Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
I am, and I'm going to be in attendance.
I might be there too.
I have to see this up close and personal. I'm excited about the offense, obviously. I think being able to have the pieces in, the pieces in place to score a lot of points. I'm interested in seeing the defense as well, because obviously it's going to be a little bit different than what we've run in the past. But Saturday, they weren't in a lot of base stuff. It wasn't a lot of 3-3-5. It was a lot of mix and match. So they'll be interested to see how they transition and adjust to that. But there's some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball as well. So
yeah, I am excited to see the defense, and I do love our past defense have been very special, and I think moving forward, these guys are still going to be studs out there. And what I'm really excited about is scoring more points than the other team, but by like a substantial amount. I'm excited about watching these dudes grow throughout the year, since it's such a short time period to, BC, like when you and I meshed, you were there for a year and a half almost. Right. So you become such brothers with each other that you don't want to do anything wrong, or you work your butt off to do everything right, is really what it is.
And next year, right, the schedule gods work in our favor, right? Like we don't have a super grueling schedule by normal Big Ten standards. Right. Where you're playing, the Penn States, Ohio States, Michigan's all in the same year. So that is in our favor.
So I've actually got I'm going to interrupt. So Saturday, September 2nd is the game against Buffalo. And now I have a question. So you guys in that 2005 season opened up against Bowling Green, and you scored 56 points.
Bowling Green.
And you scored
we were losing at half, weren't we?
You were tied at 35.
We were losing most of the game.
You were losing
most of the first half.
We were down 14-0 or
it was in like a blink of an eye.
And then you scored 35. Then you scored 5 touchdowns in the second quarter. Okay, so over under 56 points for Wisconsin against Buffalo in the opening game this year, and B, Raylan Allen over under your 297 total yards from scrimmage.
I'm under Braylon only because I think they're going to do so much other things. The focus was BC the whole time. That was BC's like coming out party. That was his
coming out party.
Oh, yeah. And that was like, get him the ball. So I'm going to go under with Braylon only because he's not – I think he'll still be the focus, but I think depending on what they try to do, we're gonna be able to transition to different things. And we have so many guys now. I think it's going to be great.
I think
56 is tough, man.
Braylon, and I think under for 56. I think it's probably going to be in the 40s.
Okay.
Because it's everything's new, but it's also the first game, right? First game of real live hitting and competition in a game. And the reality is, listen, this isn't Cincinnati, right? It's reality, right? Like this is the Big Ten. And so although you're playing Buffalo, like playing in an environment at Camp Randall is different than playing at home in Cincinnati. So I think it's going to take some of those kids an adjustment, right? Like there's a lot at stake here. And so I think there's going to be a little adjustment. So they'll probably score in the low 40s.
And Buffalo's going to come out with their hair on fire.
Guns blazing, 100%.
Guns blazing.
Yeah.
Sure. And I also, man, why do I keep my brain keeps slowing down today? It's Monday, I guess.
Well, I actually have
and this is it. Sorry, Matt Perkins. I do think that they will, if they get up to if it's like 40-17, I do think in the fourth quarter they're going to play dudes who need to get reps.
100%.
I think that's going to be important. It's not, listen, this year might not be the Alabama, let's score 70 on everyone to be number one and get to the playoffs. We got to get all these guys ready to continuously play throughout the whole season in Big Ten play. So they might bring in a second string QB, third string QB, get all the running backs reps, That always doesn't mean you're going to score 56 points, but doesn't mean that some of these guys won't break some long ones. So I still think under, but it's exciting.
Okay,
I bet you their quarterback has close to 300 yards passing, though.
Oh, it's going to be way over 300 yards passing.
I would say over on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely say over on that. Total yards, 504 for you guys in that game against Bowling Green. Over under 504 total yards in the game. Yeah, over. I feel like that too. Okay,
we ran power and Bob and I touched the ball a couple times. Like it's not north. It's over.
Yeah, Bernie, you had 4 carries for 15 yards and a touchdown.
That's what I'm saying. And one of those carries was 9 yards for a touchdown. So I had 3 carries for like 6 yards.
Whatever, man. You guys were moving the ball on the ground that day. Booker had over 100 yards too.
Sure did, yeah.
So I have one more question before we get out of here. I think this is something really interesting. I'm not a fan of Hugh Freeze as a coach whatsoever. However, I think he had an awesome idea. Showcase games instead of a showcase game against other like regional schools that like you won't play next year for in lieu of a regular spring game. So they were talking about Auburn playing like Troy and Alabama playing UAB and something like Georgia playing Georgia State or something like that. So for Wisconsin, it would be something like Wisconsin playing Northern Illinois. How would you feel about having that as like a showcase exhibition game instead of a regular spring game?
I think the smaller schools may have hesitancy about it just because of maybe the size difference and maybe injuries playing a part. I know nowadays most schools have kind of a glorified spring ring. It's not really full tackle.
Yeah,
it's kind of like controlled environment.
Yeah, you can't hit the quarterbacks. Stuff
right,
like
kind of like the NFL when they have joint practices. So I think.
But what if that controlled was against another team, right? Because you're so sick of going against your own guys by the end of the spring. But so if you could have that sort of like you talked about, like that joint practice kind of thing against Northern Illinois for a day, and make that.
What is the incentive for Northern Illinois?
You just get competition against guys that aren't on your team. It's a different look.
But the guys over there are bigger. They're faster. They're stronger. I mean, unless you start paying schools to do that, I think in their mind they're like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a great idea. I think you would have record attendances across the board.
Exactly.
Totally. If you had people playing each other, I think that'd be really cool. Even if you didn't call it a spring game, you just call it kind of like a joint practice. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah. I just think for some small schools, they'll be like, "You want us to play Alabama, Troy,
and not get paid?
Yeah,
and you're not paying us? Yeah." I think that where we are in the NCAA in football and pretty much every sport is these dudes if they're not getting paid, they're not going to do it. You're putting your body at risk. I wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be fun. I mean, I would probably do it, but that's because I hated the spring game. I hated spring practice because all you did was beat each other up.
And there's no game.
There's no game at the end of the tunnel. So if you put a game at the end, maybe. But then again, like then you're adding another game to your entire existence as a human, and it's pounding.
I think besides special teams, everything was live when we played. It was a live game.
It was a live game, tackle football, besides special teams. And I don't know.
What about the quarterback? Could you?
No, I think the quarterback was.
You couldn't hit the quarterback. Everything else.
Outside of that, like everything else was like completely full 4-quarter game.
Yeah.
I don't think that's it. Listen, we talk about baseball at the beginning, and I heard last night when the Mets were playing, if you take the 30 minutes that it takes out, the pitch clock takes about an average of 30 minutes. That's if you play every game, that's 80 hours of your body not playing a sport. Dude, that's amazing. That's 3 days.
Yeah.
So imagine that's what my only issue with spring ball is. It's so much more pounding when we played because it was like full pads almost every day. I don't remember taking a day off.
We didn't.
Or not even a day off. I mean, like spiders or just helmets.
We would do multiple days in a row.
Right.
It wasn't like this on off, but there was less rules back then too.
There's less oversight back then.
You know what I mean? Like it was pretty reckless, but that's okay.
It's okay until your body's like, completely shot now as an old man. But I think what they're doing now with spring practice is much different. Would I listen? Here's the thing: it's a positive if you're playing some better competition, right? To get better. But if Tanner goes down, somebody trips into him and busts his knee, that would make me say, why are we bringing in any team?
Right. I mean, I think there's pros and cons to probably any situation.
Listen, Lee Evans busted his knee up against one of our own guys in 03. So these things happen. And it was kind of a controlled environment. They just went up and got tangled. So I think for as a fan, it would be great. But
I just thought it was an interesting. I was an interesting concept that I wanted to throw at you guys as players as a concept. So I thought it'd be fun. Also, before we get out of here, BC, you've got to show the people that sweatshirt because that is a beautiful, beautiful sweatshirt. I love that.
A little camo action.
Yeah.
Dude, you're just a beautiful human being.
Well, that's true as well.
Everything about you is just awesome, man.
Oh, Bernie, you're funny.
No, thank you.
Well, it's the truth.
Funny. Listen, I hope I'm with you to watch the Buffalo Bulls go down. I can't even say
I'm
it.
going to be there for sure.
I'm hoping. I'm pushing. But I have multiple bosses now, and one of them's almost 2. So, you got to get a lot of check boxes to get out of town.
Start planting the seed now.
Dude, I have. Hey, Allie's mom, Carrie, can you watch our baby?
We know you're listening.
On Labor Day. Thank you. I probably just got a text from Allie saying, "What are you talking about back there, you dummy?"
Oh, that's great. Well, we hope that all of you folks who are listening out there will join BC and Bernie, and who knows, maybe me. Maybe I could put that seed out there too, to be at the opening game at Camp Randall, Saturday, September 2nd. Time to be determined. They haven't announced if it's a day game or a night game yet. I would imagine it's going to be an 11 a.m. kickoff, but probably. But, we will see. Either way, I think we're all very excited about the direction that everything is going right now. So make sure that you guys stay tuned in to the Believe in Badgers podcast, where we will be talking to all sorts of people about all this exciting stuff. We've got more coaches coming on. We'll have David Edwards next week. We've got a very special brother combination. I'm not going to reveal it yet. Very special brother combination coming on draft week, and some other big stuff coming up too. So we will be here. Make sure that you guys are subscribed to the YouTube page to get videos, and on the Instagram page at Believe in Badgers. And thanks for tuning in. For Bernie, for BC. Until next time. On Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin. Don't be a Pop-Tart, BC. I love that. Was a good one. Oh.